On today's episode of the Launchpad Podcast, we are going to talk about some draft day rumors, KJ Martin asking out, and Eric Gordon and John Wall interest. So don't go anywhere. We have a great show for y'all today on the Launchpad Podcast.
Houston, Roger, we copy and we're standing by for your TE.
They throw it up. Oh, there goes Jalen Green. Humans can't fly. Rebound picked up by Green, who's back in. Plays it ahead of board. Back to Green. Oh, and in time for Thanksgiving. But there's plenty of yams to go around for everyone.
Welcome into another episode of the Launchpad Podcast presented by Clutch City Control Room. As always, I'm your host, Don Knock. I'm joined by my fellow host, Paulo Alves, over there. You can find me on Twitter at Don Knock. You can find the pod at Clutch City CR. If you go into the description there, the bio, you can find the YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify links. Paulo, tell the people where they can find your stuff.
Yeah, y'all can find me on Twitter at Paulo Alves NBA. That's PAULOALVES NBA. Everything I do from podcasts like this one to the live shows on Twitter Spaces will find itself linked on there.
All right, and we have an interesting show for y'all today. Of course, it is Draft Eve, I guess we will call it. We're going to talk about some of the draft rumors that we've been hearing. KJ Martin asking out from the Rockets, and some of the Eric Gordon interest, as well as John Wall's opt-in. So,
Wait. First question: what's better, Christmas Eve or Draft Night Eve?
I would say up until about age maybe 21, I would say Christmas Eve. Now I'm gonna have to say Draft Night Eve is better. I'm excited for a lot of stuff. The first topic that we're going to talk about, I can't remember who brought this up first, so I'm sorry I'm not going to be able to source it, but it's been brought up a couple of times. I know Jake Fisher talked about it. I'm not sure who talked about it originally. Maybe Jonathan Fagan, I'm not sure. But they mentioned that there's a possibility that the Rockets could try to expand the Christian Wood trade to bring in some other pieces, some other assets from that. When I was on with Jake Fisher, I called into his pod and asked some questions on there. I had asked about what the Rockets would try to do with 26 and 17. And, would they try to trade them up? And basically what Jake Fisher told me was the Rockets are trying to move those picks up, but the teams that are ahead of them don't necessarily want a pick-based package because a lot of those teams are trying to compete. So you take a team like the Knicks, right? The Knicks, maybe they could use draft picks, but they probably are going to want, something more player-based. The Kings obviously are going to be on a mandate from their owner that they need to compete, and they're probably also going to want some win now players coming back. Charlotte, a team that's not, completely out of their rebuild, but also probably going to be wanting some players coming back. Now that the Rockets don't have Christian Wood, there's not really a super logical fit for them there either. So, it does make it a little bit tougher in any sort of trade down scenarios. But what Fisher said was that what the Rockets can try to do is get involved in a larger trade, move things around, maybe even utilize that Christian Wood trade that hasn't been finalized yet, and try to bring some different pieces in that way. And by doing that, potentially one of the higher picks may be coming back to the Rockets, as part of that larger expanded trade. So, Paulo, what do you think about that? And what do you think about the Rockets trying to trade up generally?
Yeah, I think ideally that's what they would want to do. I think trading Christian Wood for a first straight up. I mean, first of all, we got the report from Quid fans saying, well, that's the first time they got offered the first round pick. Whether you believe that or not, it's up to you. But taking that into consideration, right, a first round pick's always an easier asset to move than a player because it has no salary. It can be traded. You don't have to salary match. Just that alone makes it easier. And just like a player, and as opposed to a player, a draft pick can become any type of player that you want. So if you want a center, if you want a wing, a guard, whatever it is, you can draft them with that draft pick. Christian Wood being traded to a team would need to be a team that needs a center, and if a team already has a center, then it becomes tougher, right? So I think ideally they put themselves in a better negotiating position by trading for the pick, as I said, much more fluid asset. That being said, it's also hard to see how many teams actually want to trade one pick back for two picks. If we need to be a team that doesn't have a lot of players in their rotation that has a specific need to fill. The first thing that comes to mind, the Washington Wizards at pick 10. There's a clear hole at point guard there. And if they're not trading for one, we don't know yet, and Dyson Daniels doesn't fall to 10, then there's no point guard type of player that I could realistically select at 10 that wouldn't be a massive reach. And dropping from 10 to 17 would be, well, now at 17, there's Ty Washington, there's Kennedy Chandler, there's Dylan Terry, depending on how high you are. There wouldn't be massive reaches, and that would probably be available there. And so if you're Washington and you can get the guy you want anyways at 17 rather than 10, and you can add extra value, whether that is pick 26 or whatever extra assets you might need, then it might make sense. Washington is also one of those teams that doesn't have a lot of like long-term pieces. Like they have Danny Avdia, they have Riyad Limor, and they have Corey Kispert. But then you've got Porzingis. You don't really know what's going to happen to Bradley Beal. It's a little bit confusing there. So I could see them being one of the teams that they target on a trade up. We also know that they have tried to trade up. It's been reported multiple times. And we also know that there are a lot of teams trying to move down. And so in a market where there's a lot of teams trying to move down, a team trying to move up should have an easier time accomplishing their goal. But at the end of the day, it comes down to, well, how much are you willing to give up and how far do you want to trade up? I think Jonathan Fagan reported that the Rockets would want to trade up for a specific player rather than a specific draft position, right? They would the rationale would be, okay, let's look at our top 10. We like these 10 players. Let's see if any of these guys falls to, I don't know, 12, 13. And we value them as top 10 talents, just like Şengün last year. And so let's trade up to whatever team. Let's ask about 11. Let's ask about 12. Let's ask about 13, 14, and try and see if there's any team while this guy's available that's willing to trade out of that pick. I think a prime candidate to do that this year would be AJ Griffin, who's been falling for a lot of people and who had some questions there with his defense. He would probably be someone who falls just like Şengün, and that he could possibly be one of the targets for the Rockets. That being said, when it comes to specifically trading or adding onto the Christian Wood trade, I would think that mainly the main benefit would be just reroute pick 26 and add maybe pick 17 and try to trade up. It could also be that the Rockets took back less salary that they gave up. Christian Wood is making almost $14 million, I'm pretty sure, or 14 flat, I'm not sure, but close to that, and they only took back $10 million. And so there's a $4 million gap there. And so with the trade rules, you could probably take more than that as well. So if a team, let's imagine, what type of value can the Rockets provide to a team moving down? Well, the first option would be the picks. Second option would be, well, maybe a player or two that might be more ready to contend, whether that's Tate or KJ Martin, who we'll get on the next segment. And the third way is, what if some teams like really close to the tax line, or what if some teams trying to make a move in free agency, maybe we could take back a salary that they do not want that would fit into this trade, right? And see if we can provide value that way, because we're likely in trading up, we're likely putting together a bunch of small pieces of value trying to trade up. So that would be 17 and 26, and let's say KJ Martin or whatever it is, and if we can add on to that, hey, maybe let's say the Knicks have been trying to get rid of Kemba Walker, right? If we could take on Kemba Walker in this scenario, I'm not sure, I haven't looked at the math, but as an example, then it might be more enticing for the Knicks to do that deal. And in a trade up, it's all about that. When you're trading up this little, you don't want to give up a prime asset, so you don't want to give up your Josh Christophers or your Şengüns or anything like that. But if you can consolidate a bunch of small pieces of value into one big pick, then I think that's the goal. And leaving the Christian Wood trade open going into the draft could provide some flexibility on how they can achieve the amount of value that a team would require for a trade up.
So speaking of trade scenarios, right? Another thing that's been rumored about the last couple of days was the Rockets potentially trading up with the Orlando Magic for pick number 1, or the Rockets even trading up for pick number 2 with Oklahoma City Thunder. Along with this, we had a big movement in the Vegas betting odds in terms of Paolo Banchero's likeliness to go number 1. I believe it started out as like 16 plus 1600, and then it dropped all the way down to like plus 275, and it may be even lower than that now, maybe 160. I don't want anyone to take those Vegas betting odds as like, surefire guarantees that something's going to happen. A lot of times you'll get a lot of people betting a certain way. The Banchero odds were really slanted against him going number 1. So if a bunch of people bet a certain way, then a bunch of people are going to come in on the other side and try to, even those odds out. So that's definitely something that's definitely, it's good value. It's definitely something that can happen. But we also heard from Jeremy Woo, Jake Fisher, Sam Vecini.
KOC.
I'm trying to think if there's any KOC, and Rafael Barlow as well, that there is some legitimate interest from the Oklahoma City Thunder in Paolo Banchero. And I think we got into kind of the meta analysis of what's going on with this on Twitter today. And there was a lot of people like the Rockets were really open that they like Banchero, and now the Thunder are going to hold them over the fire for him. I haven't heard Paolo Banchero being interested by the Magic. I believe he still hasn't worked out for the Magic. I believe he didn't give his medicals to the Magic.
No, he repeatedly postponed his workouts with the Magic because he doesn't want to go there. Like, that's what prospects do. You don't flat out refuse a workout. You keep on delaying it, and eventually it's too late, right? Because
he has one day left to get that workout in. I think he's in New York right now. So I don't see anyone really mocking Banchero to the Magic. Now we have all these rumors that the Thunder may take him. So in my opinion, right, when the lottery happened, right after the lottery, Adrian Wojnarowski tweeted out that the expectation around the league is Chet Holmgren to go number 2, Jabari Smith to go number 1, or some order and combination of those things. No mention of Paolo. For weeks after that, we had the same mock drafts, Jabari, Chet, and Paolo. And then finally with the week leading up to the draft, we start to hear, OKC is interested in Paolo. And where I'm at on this right now is that if OKC is interested in Paolo, go ahead and take him. There is no reason, in my estimation, that we should engage with them. Their first response was, we like Chet. We've seen them cozying up to Chet. We've seen Chet liking Shea Gilgeous-Alexander posts on socials. We've seen Chet liking, I think, some other Thunder-related posts on socials. We've seen Banchero's camp leaking stuff that he likes the Rockets. We've seen Banchero interacting with and speaking highly of KPJ and Jalen for most of the season. And so, it seems like those two prospects are comfortable with that result. It seems like coming out of the draft lottery, the teams are comfortable with that result. And, if this is the Thunder trying to do some sort of, leaking 3D chess, mind games or whatever, just let them do whatever they want to do and take the prospect that falls. These are not super stratified prospects. Just from a fit perspective, even though, we don't want the Rockets to draft for fit, Chet Holmgren, can slot right in on this roster, just like Paolo Banchero would be able to. Some people think that Chet's an even better fit than Paolo Banchero is, which we're not going to get into that right now. We've done plenty of podcasts on that, but just from a strategy and planning standpoint, I would not get into any sort of trade scenarios with the Thunder. If you want to trade with the Magic, then I could be interested in doing something with the Magic, but because the Thunder are A, in our conference, B, in our division, and C, we already have a very complex future pick situation with them, I don't want to be giving them anything else. Even though they're at a point where they have so many picks, like, they're going to keep having to push these picks into the future. I don't want to deal with them again. We dealt with them last year with the Şengün trade, and, we got, I believe, a one up on them there. Don't give them anything for this pick. The value is not that substantial. If you want to go to one and deal with the Magic, okay, at least you're not dealing with someone who's in division, in conference. We already owe them a bunch of picks. If you want to throw the Magic pick 26, or you want to throw the Magic KJ Martin, or there's something we're going to get into a little bit later on, maybe even involving another late first. If you want to push another late first that you may scrape up in a deal on draft night, that's fine. But I don't want to do something like, oh, let's send the Brooklyn 2024 unprotected pick to Orlando for this pick. I don't want to do anything like that. I feel like that's very rash. I feel like that's very hasty. Even if you did something like that pick lottery protected, or our pick next year lottery protected, I think that's way too much. Philadelphia sent Boston an unprotected first round pick in the Markelle Fultz trade, and that pick ended up being, I think it was 14. So, they didn't get great value. Philadelphia was already a team that was starting to go into competition at that point, but the Rockets are not even where Philadelphia was in that cycle. We'd have to put some sort of substantial protections on it, in my estimation, to make me comfortable with any sort of trade like that, dealing any of the picks that aren't, I guess Milwaukee's pick next year likely slots in post lottery. So maybe if they want to give it the Milwaukee pick, I would think about it. But outside of that, it just, the assets that we do have left at this point, besides this season, are all pretty good assets. And so I don't want to get into giving any of those up just to move up 1 or 2 spots in a 3-player draft. So that's how I feel about it, Paolo. Go on ahead. And then I actually, let me just say one more thing. Let me say one more thing before I hand it over. There was this big hullabaloo today on Twitter about how the Rockets put their Paolo interest out there, and, oh, Sam Presti would never do this, and Sam Presti's going to outfox us and all this stuff. And I don't like operating scared. I don't want people out here being like scared of Sam Presti. I mean, this guy drafted Harden, Westbrook, and Durant, and that was very impressive. But since that time, what has all of his Jedi mind tricks and such really accomplished? They lost Harden, and they kept Serge Ibaka. I mean, that wasn't a ideal maneuver. They drafted a lot of no 3, some D super athletic wings, and a lot of those didn't pan out. I guess Lou Dort was another pickup for them that was pretty good, but it's not like Sam Presti has never missed. It's not like Sam Presti has never done anything that didn't pan out. And so all these people that are like throwing him around as some type of boogeyman, it's like, look, I'm not going to say not to underestimate your opponent, right? You should have a healthy respect for Sam Presti and what he's done, for sure. But all these people that are saying like, oh, like Stone just getting completely outfoxed by Presti here. I mean, we had basically a similar result last year of, everyone was kind of aware that the Rockets like Jalen Green. And you know what happened? The Rockets got Jalen Green. And you know what I think is going to happen this year? I think the Rockets are going to stay at 3 and get Paolo Banchero, have him fall to them at 3. So I think, if the Rockets are posting, if they're posting, their draft board on Twitter, then yeah, I have a problem with that. But once the lottery shook out how it did, and you have, Orlando rumored to like Jabari, Oklahoma City rumored to like Chet, tweet out right away. And, you don't really see those teams getting slammed for, oh, Woj had their pick, seconds after the lottery. But, even though we're days away from the draft and now all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, the Rockets like Paolo. I don't think we need to come down on Rafael Stone for that, because again, like, we had the Thunder and Magic picks basically for weeks now.
I mean, it's still projecting their unhappiness with getting Paolo onto everybody else. There was a clear strategy, which was, well, let's hope we don't get Paolo. Okay, we're getting Paolo. Okay, let's discredit Paolo. Okay, it's not working. Okay, what's the next step? Let's hide behind the excuse. Oh, the Rockets didn't have a chance. That's why they got Paolo. And now the Rockets are putting out there beforehand that they do like Paolo. Now it's like, oh, the Rockets are so stupid for saying they like Paolo beforehand. Guys, please. We've known the Magic have Jabari number 1 for 3 weeks. Please. 3 weeks we've known this. It's been consensus on 90% of mocks, right? The OKC wanting Chet at least been 2 weeks old. Okay, Chet and Jabari being 1 and 2 has been there since the moment the balls, like the lottery balls, set into place. Okay, the Houston likes Paolo rumors have a week. Okay, beforehand it was Houston's gonna take whoever falls, and everybody was like, "Oh, who's gonna fall is Paolo?" Well, yes. So what's the difference now? Because we leaked that we like the guy that's probably gonna fall to us. What negotiation what are they going to lose? Do y'all realistically think, any of these organizations, both the Magic and the Thunder, are going to take a prospect that they do not value as number 1 just because the Rockets leak that they like him number 1? No, they're trying to extract an extra asset out of the Rockets because they have him number 1 and they have the opportunity to take them. But when it comes down to it, if the Rockets call their bluff, I would bet a lot right now that both Presti and what's his name, Waltman, neither of them are going to select Paolo and try to extort the pick out of the Rockets. It's just not how it works. They're going to play that game up until draft night. Come draft night, they're going to select whichever player they had number 1 on their board. If it's Paolo, it's Paolo. But it wasn't because the Rockets leaked that they liked Paolo. That makes no sense. And just another thing that I want to touch on. Yes, they did leak that they liked Jalen last year. What did they lose because of it? Nothing. Yes, they're looking at Paolo is the guy they like this year. What are they going to lose because of it? Absolutely nothing.
And I want to just add one thing to that. We were in a space with Clutch fans last night, and Clutch fans basically said in the space, I'm going to paraphrase here just to be quick, that some of the leaks about the Banchero interest by the Rockets has come from Banchero's own camp. So given that information, I don't understand how you can say, oh, this is all on Stone, when Banchero is trying to somewhat of a degree, force his way to Houston as well. And, people will say, oh, Jabari didn't work out for the Rockets. What's wrong with the Rockets? Well, we've seen Banchero angling to not go to the Magic. So is something wrong with the Magic then as well? Because Banchero didn't share his medicals with them, because he's pushed his workouts back with them. You don't hear people saying that in the opposite direction. It's just, oh, the Rockets are fumbling this. The Rockets, Jabari doesn't like us. So, whatever. And you don't hear those arguments being made in the opposite direction. And I'm going to come out and say this. I really think, some of what Paolo said there is true, is that the people that like Banchero are happy that we're going to get our guy, and they don't feel compelled to make those type of arguments. If you don't like Paolo, you're more pressed to try to make these type of arguments to either discredit him or, complain that what the front office is doing is wrong because you don't like the direction that it's going. And, I don't think that's fair to how this has been handled. If we get to draft night and they do something crazy, like they trade 2 first-round picks plus 3 to get up to 1, at that point, then we can say, yes, they fumbled the way they handled this pick. They got squeezed into giving way too much value up for this. But, if they come out and they trade 26 and 3 to get to 1 and get Banchero, maybe if they had just not leaked anything, they could have just taken Banchero at 3. But I'm comfortable giving up 26. I'm comfortable giving up, maybe even KJ Martin in that type of move up scenario. And, unless we see something completely off the walls happen at the draft on Thursday, I think a lot of the I'm not going to say cabin fever, but, some of the hysterics that we saw today were, very unfounded. I just want to close with one point. I tweeted out earlier that the Rockets tweeting out, or the Rockets, leaking, or putting out there that they have interest in Banchero, it takes away the ability of people that said, oh, after the draft that they're just going to say that they got their guy no matter what. And a lot of people said, oh, that's dumb. They need to just shut up and let things happen. And I just want to say that that was a narrative that we saw happening on Twitter last week. That comment from me wasn't something I just threw out in the ether, completely in a vacuum. Late last week, there were people that were saying, oh yeah, the Rockets didn't really want Paolo, but they're going to draft him. And then we're going to hear a bunch of BS about how he was number one on their board anyway. And the Rockets have basically gone out and said, no, like, this is who is number one on our board. We're saying it before the draft, so y'all can't say we got, leveraged into taking him or whatever. I guess people could say, they only said that because they got 3 and they couldn't, get the guy at 1 or 2, which, if you feel that way, you feel that way. But we're getting down a very cynical rabbit hole here. But I think I'm at a point of this now where we've done so much discussion on these narratives and different things that I'm ready for the draft to happen. We can, get whoever we get in house, and we can really start doing more film analysis and more breakdown on what that guy looks like on the court with the other players.
Yeah. Well, let me just say something else before we close. I mean, this is so dumb. It's not going to change anything. Like, what team? So, are you telling me that, like, last year, just before the draft, clear number 1, Cade Cunningham, there were rumors that the Rockets were trying to trade up. This year, it's the exact same thing. It's 2 days before the draft. These things happen. Everybody's trying to fleece everybody. If the Magic can get the guy that they want at 3 still, and get an extra asset, they're going to do it. They're going to try and do it. Like, even if the Rockets don't leak that they want Banchero, the Magic are still going to try and get an extra asset if they feel like they can get the same guy that they want. This is a little bit of a game of chicken. This is like, nothing's gonna change, and to crucify the front office because they leak too much. I think they leak too much in a gimmicky way sometimes, like the Oladipo saga, or the we want a first that's not this year for Eric Gordon saga, or stuff like that. Yes, sometimes they overplay their hand. Both scenarios, both last year and this year, they leak it's known the player that they want, but it's not going to change anything because it's 2 scenarios where there's been a clear number 2 for these top 2 teams, and they're not going to change it just because Rockets find Banchero to be the best player. Just like last year, if they made the decision that they want Jalen Green, then it doesn't make a difference because they're going to get him because Kate's going to go number 1. Doesn't change anything. This year, it's not going to change anything. What actually matters, or the picks where it's really doubtful what they could take, the late picks. Last year, nobody could have called Josh Christopher. Nobody could have called Alperen Sengun.
Well, you called Josh Christopher.
I did, but I was mostly guessing.
Yeah.
Nobody could have called Usman Garuba, right? This year, I bet you nobody's going to call what the Rockets are going to pick because we barely know who they worked out anyways. They're super secretive about this stuff. I just don't understand. And to close off on a little bit of a more positive note, if we were to trade up, I'm okay giving up 26. If I'm Rafael Stone and the Magic come to me and they're like, and I do value Banchero as the number 1, right? And if the Magic come to me and they're like, hey, we're trying to get an extra asset out of this. If you don't want to go through the hassle of wondering if OKC is gonna pick Banchero number 2, or if you want to secure your top guy, and you're only giving up a late first round pick in a bad draft, sure, go ahead, make the trade if you feel like Banchero is number 1 clearly. If you don't and you're okay with getting any of the 3, then just let one of the 3 fall. If they are overplaying their hand, if they want one of the Brooklyn picks, or if they want Josh Christopher or something like that, then don't, and just call their bluff If they don't think Banchero is the best prospect, they're not going to pick him. And if they do think that Banchero is the best prospect, they're not going to trade back anyways. They're going to take who they think the best prospect is. It's not going to change anything.
All right, we're gonna go to break. When we come back, we're gonna talk. We have a little bit more draft stuff, and then we're also gonna talk about KJ Martin, and a little bit of the saga that unfolded about him asking out. So don't go anywhere. We will be right back. Continuing into our second segment here on the Launchpad podcast. So we talked about some draft stuff. We're gonna talk a little bit about KJ Martin asking out. In the segment, we're also gonna talk a little bit about trade up scenarios from 1726, and if we don't trade up, who we would ideally like at 17 and 26. Paulo, let's start with trade up scenarios. If we trade up, who would you be interested in? Do you see any realistic packages or realistic targets to move up?
I think there's a scenario that's played out in my head a little bit. But we did get from Jonathan Fagan that the Rockets likely aren't taking a big man. I don't know if that's because they're not interested in taking one. I don't know if that's because there's clearly not one projected to go where the Rockets pick currently. But I've been playing a scenario out in my head where it reaches pick 13 and the Hornets are really into the center, but they think we have pick 15 and who picks between our two picks is Cleveland. Cleveland's not going to take a center, and so they take their favorite wing, which is likely what Cleveland going to pick at 13, expecting 15 to be Mark Williams. And that's where the Rockets deal with Cleveland to trade back to 17. They trade up and they snag Mark Williams out of Charlotte's hands before they can take it. That's one of my favorite things. I think from 17 to 14 can probably be gotten just by trading 26 and 17. And so I think that's a really interesting scenario. I really like Mark Williams. If we are getting Paolo, Mark Williams has chemistry there, and they're a good fit on the court as well. Other than that, as I said before, I could see us trading up to one of Washington, Knicks, or Charlotte at 13, and selecting someone like an AJ Griffin that might fall. Personally, if I could trade up, Mark Williams is one of my favorites. Usman Chang's one of my favorites. I mean, if one of your Benedict Mathurin's, Keegan Murray's, or Dyson Daniels falls, yes as well. I don't really like the idea of trading it for Sharp. Feels kind of redundant with what we got right now. Some people like Sohan or Sohan. I don't really like him that much because I think he's going to struggle to play actual minutes day one.
I'm pretty high on Sohan. I think if we trade up, that would probably be who I would want to target. Jang, I would say maybe. I think he's a little bit more project-y, depending on how far we'd have to trade up. I'm not crazy about Branham. And then Jalen Williams, I think he's going to go just before us. But those are probably the three my guys that I'd be interested in trading up for at this point.
Yep. I guess it would also be fun. I mean, the thing with Sochan is, if he can't shoot, can you really play day one? And if we're trading up, I want the guy coming in to be able to play day one. That being said, we taught KJ Martin how to shoot. He didn't shoot at all beforehand, so we'll be fine. But then, other than that, I think it would be cool. Do you want to predict, or not predict, say what your ideal draft looks like if we are not trading up? So give me your ideal pick at 17 realistically, then give me your ideal pick at 26 realistically.
I don't think Jalen Williams is going to be there at 17, but if he was, that's who I would want.
Okay.
That's who I would want. At 26, there were some leaks earlier about Ty Washington and the Rockets kind of being interested in him. I would be okay with Washington at 26, not necessarily at 17. If Hardy falls to 26, I would be really high on Hardy just because I think that's a very high talent that's fallen that far. And then Beauchamp. I think Beauchamp at 26, I would be very pleased with as well. If we can't get any of those, there's been a lot of Eason And I'm okay with Eason. I think I'm a little bit lower than other people are on him, but some combination of those guys I think would be ideal for me between the two picks.
Okay, so I'm going to give you two scenarios that are my ideal scenarios. 10 out of 10. I'll go crazy on the draft here. The first one is if we draft Paulo at 3, obviously, and then somehow Mark Williams either falls to 17 or we trade a minor asset or KJ Martin or whatever it is to draft him. So Paulo, Mark Williams, and Wendell Moore at 26, who's also not a reach there, would be a really interesting draft just because a lot of synergy. Those guys play together at Duke. They all fit. What I like in later picks is guys that fit a mold or a role really well. And then you got Wendell Moore, who's a clear 3-and-D wing, who can do some more stuff. He has some passing chops, but 3-and-D wing, good size, 6'6", with a good wingspan. I like him. And then Mark Williams, classic, 7'2", rim running center, excellent rim protector, excellent length, excellent rebounder, can cover for the problems that you might have with Paolo. I really like that scenario. That's the bias I rooted for Duke this year, me, even though I really don't like AJ Griffin, which is weird. And then my other one is the one that everybody talks about, which is Tari Eason at 17, Beauchamp at 26, the Seattle boys. You're getting Eason, who's going to be a defensive power forward who can play some small 5, who's able to switch on threes. Hopefully, can develop his jump shot. Really athletic, moves his feet well, really good defender. And then Beauchamp, who is someone who projects to be more of a 3-and-D wing. The 3 is developing, but I believe he'll get there. He's a really good mid-range shooter. He's a really good cutter, which excites me when playing with Paolo because Paolo is a really good passer, and we don't have many good cutters on this team. So if Beauchamp's a really good cutter, he's a good fit with Paolo, and I think Paolo will find him a lot. But then, if we're not going for these gimmicky combos, I really like EJ Liddell, either at 17 or 26. I think that's about the two edges of the range that he might go to. We like him as a PJ Tucker type forward, someone who can do some rim protection, someone who can shoot threes, who's going to play really good defense, who's going to make the right play. I think he's an underrated rim protector, and so he fits well with Chingun as well. Although that is another power forward that we would be drafting, and I don't quite think that he's a wing. Or if you play him at the wing, you're wildly misusing his rim protection, and he's really not tall enough to play the 5 because he's 6'7". But I really like him. If Akbadli falls to 17, I really like him as well. And then at 26, at that point, you're swinging for talent, right? I know some people like Jovic. I don't really like him, but I like Wendell more. I like, to some extent, I like Kennedy Chandler, although I don't think we'll take him because we've got Dejan Nix. I like Jalen Hardy just as an upside swing. He would probably get another year in the T League, which is, I mean, it works for the Knicks. So, yeah, those are my favorite, little draft scenarios. If I could choose right now, I would probably go with the Duke one. I think that one's my favorite because it also involves a guy that I think would never fall to us falling. But yeah.
Okay. Now we get into the interesting stuff. On yesterday, June 20th at 9:04 a.m., Kelly Eco of The Athletic tweeted out with the reality of the incoming number 3 pick and possibly more. Second-year forward KJ Martin recently approached Rockets management to discuss the possibility of a trade from the franchise, sources told The Athletic. Okay, this caused quite the firestorm on social media. There were a lot of different perspectives. Most of the perspectives were, if you go to another team, are you really going to get more playing time there? People looked at other teams' rosters to try to figure out a team that he could go to and get more playing time. I was on Jake Fisher's call-in show again earlier today, and I asked if he had heard of any interest in KJ Martin. He said he had not heard any interest in KJ Martin, but I believe there was a tweet yesterday. I don't remember who it was from, but they said that there was some teams, even contenders, that had some level of interest in KJ Martin. Fisher and Jeremy Woot, they would not go into they heard any offers or any rumors or anything like that. But okay. When the season started out, I was someone that was high on starting KJ. Oh, hold on. All right, sorry, I had to sneeze there. Yeah, I was someone that said we should start KJ over Jayshawn Tate. On this podcast, earlier this month and last month, I advocated for trading Tate over KJ Martin because I felt like Tate's value around the league would be higher. He's more of a impact player, win now type of guy because he can play defense. He has some level of passing, and then he can score kind of inside. I can't say I didn't see this coming because, again, his dad kind of hinted at this earlier on in the summer. But I didn't see it coming this quickly. Okay. I think this is coming from some of his dad's perspective, being a number 1 overall pick, having a certain level of cachet in the league, having a certain level of pull. Even though it's not him in that situation, I can see how his perspective would be to kind of carry yourself, handle yourself a certain way because you have that cachet, you have that sway. I don't agree with it. I can see why his dad feels that way. I think at the end of the day, if KJ feels like he can do better in a better situation, that is something that he is free to go try and accomplish. I don't know if you're going to get a situation where you're going to be given more playing time than a team that was the worst record in the league for the last 2 years, right? If you couldn't carve out minutes on this roster, it'd have to be a very specific fit. It'd have to be a team that did not have any sort of athletic backup wings. And, we can speculate on what teams those might be, but at the end of the day, I think it does open up some time for other players. And I think it also does. I think the roster crunch was going to happen regardless. So I've advocated for trading Tate, and trading KJ instead is one way to fix that. But I think even if we bring in someone else, I think you're going to see, even if we bring in someone at pick 17 or 26, right? I think you're going to see one of the guys that's in the 3, 4, 5 backup rotation get pushed back in the G League. And it's looking like that's probably going to be Usman Garuba again. The team has already mentioned that they're planning to explore backup center options that are more ready to go than Garuba seems to be at this point. So, if you had KJ on the roster still, you bring in a backup center and then you draft someone at 17 or 26, potentially both. That squeeze just getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And, eventually someone was going to get squeezed out. And it seemed like KJ saw the writing on the wall and, maybe just trying to beat that to the punch.
Hey, I understand if you don't think you're going to get minutes next year. Yes, go ahead, talk with management, see if they can move you somewhere, right? Coming public with it, problem number 1, because the team's not going to trade you for a bad return. You have 2 years left on your deal. You're largely, like, you're not a superstar. There's no agents to please. You're largely relying on the team's goodwill to move you and recognize if they can get a good return. So coming public with it, big no. You probably just hurt your position a little bit. And then, dude, where are you getting more minutes than at the Rockets? I mean, unless you're doing this preemptively, predicting you're not going to get minutes next year, then I could maybe see it, depending on who they draft. But you just came public with it preemptively. Kind of weird. Second of all, if that's not the case and you're complaining about your minutes last season, you played 21 minutes a game. you are the 52nd pick in the 2019 or in the 2020 NBA draft. Considered one of the weakest drafts in memory. Okay, so what are we doing here? You're probably not going to get more than 21 minutes elsewhere, right? And I mean, there might be a crunch coming. I would probably rather play KJ as a player in a vacuum rather than Tate because he can shoot a little better. But I also don't know if the tweaks that Tate's been working on his jump shot this offseason worked. Because if they do, then Tate's clearly the better player. Just how it is. That being said, if you're going to be this whiny about it, then I might prefer Jason Tate because I cannot imagine Jason Tate ever coming public requesting a trade. Just not the type of, just doesn't seem like the type of guy that he is. He seems like the type of guy that's going to outwork you and force the coaching staff to play you over the guy that you're not playing, right? And KJ did with his play warrant more minutes to begin the season. He didn't deserve Daniel House or David Nuava playing over him. But as the season went on, he got his deserved minutes, and you might make the argument that he should play over Jason Tate. You might have a point there. Not enough to demand a trade. You're getting 21 minutes a night. You're not good enough to a point where you getting 21 minutes is hurting your career. Okay, that's plenty that you need to work on. And most teams in the league that are not the worst team in the league, you are a backup. You need to develop a handle. You need to develop a more consistent three-point shot. You're still not a good free throw shooter. You've improved your defense, but you're not a lockdown guy. You're a guy that can stay in front of your matchup, and you're someone who can provide some weak side rim protection with your athleticism. You're an intriguing young prospect. I just don't see it. And if he wants out this path, trade him. I mean, right now, if KJ Martin can be used in a trade up to 10 to draft a guy like Sochan or a guy like Usman Jang or someone like that, then do it. I mean, it reaches a point where I'm not sure your talent is high enough to warrant any possible locker room issues or any possible personality issues or unprofessionalism. Okay, and so it depends on how big the issue truly is. It's easy to overthink it through social media. It's easy to misunderstand words, but depending on how big the issue is, it might just not be worth it because you can put up with some of these things where if you're talking about a star player or a guy with star upside, like a KPJ, like a Jalen Green, who thankfully there's not been any concerns there, but guys like that. With the 52nd pick of the 2020 draft, it's not worth it. And for cultural reasons, I might prefer to keep Jason Tate right now than I would KJ, because there's a difference there. KJ probably fits into more lineups, but Tate's attitude and the locker room enforcer role, and a guy that's been here since the beginning of the rebuild, also has value. And if the 10% worse player, 10% worse fit that Tate is compared to KJ is balanced out by KJ elevating, Tate elevating his teammates or being a good presence in the locker room and getting 5% extra effort out of everybody and being that type of guy, then I would probably take it. But then at the end of the day, it's also not that big of a deal. As I said, it's one player. It's a second-round pick. It's not worth being up in arms about. I'm sure Rafael Stone will make whatever decision is best about it. I'm not pressed by it. If it is a big enough issue, I'm sure Stone will trade him. If it isn't, I'm sure they can work it out. It will, I think, all get resolved, if not by draft night, during the week after draft night, mostly because if they draft a lot of forwards, then maybe they trade KJ. If they see a scenario to trade up, maybe they trade KJ. The other thing I will point out is KJ is a little bit unique in the sense that he has a really small salary, so he doesn't require salary matching, and he will probably be more attractive to some teams than the 26th pick in this year's draft is, just because more of a known quantity can provide something right now. if I'm the Knicks, for example, I would probably rather have KJ Martin than pick 26. But yeah,
Especially because Tibbs doesn't like playing young players, right?
yeah, but
KJ's not a vet, but he's a little bit older than, a rookie would be coming in.
Yeah, he plays. I think he would be a good Tibbs ball player, like a really athletic.
Plays hard.
Yeah.
So I think this is a good place to stop for the end of the segment. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about Eric Gordon, little bit about John Wall, and we'll see what we have time for left after that. So don't go anywhere. We will be right back. And continuing to our final segment here on the Launchpad podcast, we're going to talk a little bit about Eric Gordon trade interest, which we just heard about, and John Wall. So we're going to start with Eric Gordon. Friend of the show, I'll say, Tim McMahon of ESPN tweeted, or sorry, he didn't tweet. He was on a podcast with Windhorst that was on YouTube. And on that podcast, they talked about Eric Gordon. They said that the Philadelphia 76ers offered pick 23 for Eric Gordon. And they also said that the Rockets are certain that they can get a first round pick for Eric Gordon in this draft. They went on to say that they would probably prefer a pick in another draft, whether that be 23, 24, or onward, 2023, 2024, or onward. But those picks are on the table. We'll see what the interest of Eric Gordon is and, how that comes into play here, because we have seen the Rockets really try to, do right by their guys. We saw that with PJ Tucker. We saw that with Victor Oladipo. We saw that. Would you say we saw that with Westbrook? Maybe a little bit. We saw that with Westbrook.
I don't think we had many options there.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of if we have any other examples. They fully guaranteed DeMarcus Cousins' salary before they waived him to kind of do right by him in that sense as well. But, a lot of people wanted Eric Gordon to be traded at the deadline. People thought that whatever we were going to get for Eric Gordon at the deadline was going to be his peak value. And most people expected that to be the Suns or what other team did you say, Paulo? The Suns, the Bucks, the Cavs. I think the Cavs would still be the best value. I think their pick hit at 14 or something along those lines, 15. So, if they had traded with the Cavs, I would argue that the Cavs wouldn't have finished 14 or 15, wherever they are, with Eric Gordon. So that pick may not have been as good. But if they have the 23rd pick in hand, I would say this is another win for Stone. They held on to Eric Gordon. They got that second half of the season of veteran leadership out of him. And, they could still get a low 20s pick in exchange for him, if not a better pick. I think Windhorst tweeted out earlier or mentioned earlier in this pod that Phoenix was another team that was interested in Eric Gordon. What Phoenix would send back would be interesting. With the 76ers, you kind of have the obvious package of Danny Green and 23. And that's a package that makes sense. They'll probably shop that package around to different teams. And when you have that salary that needs to go out, it makes giving up a better pick more palatable for the team that's trading that bad salary out, right? With the Suns, we'll see what that package looks like. I don't know, maybe you can think of a very obvious package that the Suns could put out, but I don't have anything on the top of my head.
Wait, I got it. I had it right in front of me. It's Dario Saric, Cameron Payne, and whichever first from, I think, 2023 on, like in whatever year, protected, in whichever protection you want to put on it. But the salary matching would be that, because Saric is injured. He has a really serious injury. Cameron Payne was underwhelming last year. So, and Gordon would play the role that he played anyways.
Yeah. So there you go. There you go on what those trade packages would most likely look like. really either of those, I think, fulfills kind of three criteria that are probably going to be needing to be checked off in an Eric Gordon trade. One, send him to a place where he probably wants to go. So in Philadelphia, he would have James Harden, Daryl Morey. In Phoenix, he would have Chris Paul. I don't know if there's anyone else in Phoenix that he's played with, but besides the point. The second would be a team that has obvious, value to send back. So the first round picks coming from either of those teams are, okay value. And then the salary matching, like we talked about. And one thing I'd want to point out before we go even further on this is that the Rockets are going to value not taking back long-term salary. We just saw that in the Christian Wood trade. We just saw how they took back, 4 guys that are basically no future with the team except maybe Boban, because they want to protect that salary cap space into the 2023 and onward seasons. Any Eric Gordon trade that they make, I think that's going to be something they prioritize. They've done a good job keeping their books clean up to this point, and I really think that that's something that when and if an Eric Gordon trade happens, they're going to most likely get 1 to no bad years of salary coming back in that trade.
Yeah. To me, if the Sixers offer is there and it's 23, then it's a good baseline, which means worst case scenario, you take 23. I'm not sure they will take 23 over just keeping Eric Gordon. And the rationale behind it is, well, they can't really make 4 picks this draft. It's just not feasible. You can't play everyone. You're going to send like 2 or 3 guys to the G League. I think the only reason that deal is not made already is it's because they're trying to see, well, can we trade either 26 and 23 or 23 and 17 or whatever it is up, or maybe even all 3 up into a mid-lottery pick, right? If they can, I think they will do that deal. If they can't, I struggle. I think they'll hold out and try and see what other teams would be okay. Maybe giving up a first that's not this year, or maybe they'll try and see if they can trade 23 itself for a future pick. We know that the Thunder traded 30 for a 2027 Nuggets pick, right? So there's ways to get value there. There's ways to delay the picks forward, but I think that would be the priority. And then, as you said, they're not trying to get salary that they would not be able to move next year. I think with the Sixers package, for Korkmaz has to come with him. He is making $5 million next year, which is not great, but it's movable salary. If $5 million is separating you from getting a good player or not, then you can move it. I don't think that's a problem. Yeah, when it comes to the Eric Gordon trade, it's been talked about so much. They're going to do it if they get a first. They're going to try and get a first. That's not this year. If they do get a first this year, they're going to try to move that first. It's the same old. About the Suns, it's the trade that I said I prefer the Suns trade over the Sixers trade. Just because the Suns can give us a pick that's further down the line, even if it's protected. But yeah, I think that's basically all I have to say about the Eric Gordon trades. About the John Wall stuff that we're also supposed to talk about.
Hold on. Let me introduce it properly. You can't just, bounce around. Earlier today, I believe it was today. Was it yesterday? We've had so much stuff happen. I think it was today, yeah. From Shams Charania of The Athletic. Earlier today, he tweeted out Houston Rockets John Wall's agent, Clutch Sports CEO Rich Paul, has informed the organization that the guard exercised his $47.4 million player option for the 2022-2023 season. Sources tell The Athletic and Stadium. I think no one is surprised by this. Just want to say that. First of all, the reason we're talking about it is because we have also done well, we've done some legwork journalism, if you will, on this front in the last couple of weeks. We were in a space with Hoops Hype's Michael Scotto, and I asked him what he thought was going to happen uh, to resolve the John Wall situation. He said that he thought the Rockets are going to continue to explore trades and that he believed that the situation was going to end up going to a buyout. Then I was in the show with Jake Fisher. I asked Jake Fisher the same question. What do you think is going to end up happening with this John Wall situation? And he said virtually the same thing that Michael Scotto said. He said they're going to probably try to explore some trades. He hadn't heard any traction of any trades. A trade is going to be very difficult just because of the magnitude of John Wall's salary. And he expected it to end up going to a buyout. So John Wall has opted into his player option. We're now basically 48 hours away from the draft. Before free agency, I think we're going to see John Wall probably take a buyout. Hopefully he can go to a team where he gets, a good piece of the MLE money, whether that's like the Knicks or the Wizards or, any of these teams that need a point guard, and the Rockets can get some of that money offset. And that's how I see the situation going. We've kind of been on the trail of this situation, me and Paulo specifically for a while now. We try to ask about it whenever we can get one of these, real reporters on the pod, on the space, whatever the case may be with us. And I can speak for Paulo too, because we've talked about this so much. I think the expectation of this going to a buyout has been something that we've thought this was going to go the direction of for a long time. And I think
I was expecting to get Jason Tatum for John Wall.
Okay, well, this is news to me, so I'm gonna say I'm offended that you didn't share this very strongly held belief that you had with me until this very inopportune moment. But yeah, I think this is the direction a lot of people thought this situation was going to end up going, and we are getting into the last 100 meters of this race, and I think that's what's going to transpire in the very not so distant future.
Yeah, the only thing that's left to discover is how much does John Wall give back. I don't expect him to give back a single cent more than what he gets promised by a team in free agency. Otherwise, he would have just done it last year. So yeah, I think, it's in his best interest to leave and go play for somewhere, because he's played what I think in the last 4 seasons he's played like 50 games. That was with the Rockets. So I think there's going to be a team that gives him just a full mid-level exception. I think the Boston Celtics are a really good shout. If they can get the non-taxpayer MLE, that's like 10 million. That would mean that we'd buy him out for 37 million, which means we would have 37 million dead cap hold just for this year. I don't expect them to stretch it out. Doesn't make any sense. Just we're going to be bad this year. Eat the entire thing. This year, next year, you have massive amounts of cap space. The other thing that might happen as well is if we do save that money on John Wall, there's a possibility that we might have a little bit of cap space this year. I haven't crunched the numbers completely, but it likely will not be enough to warrant us acting as an under the cap team, because that makes it so we don't have MLE, so we can't give 4-year non-guarantee deals to undrafted free agents. If we move Eric Gordon, they might save us some money as well. But we are currently just double checking, right? We're currently paying our active roster 114 million. The salary cap for next year is projected to be 122 million. And so if you take from these 114 to 10 million from the John Wall stuff, that's 104. That's now like 18 million of cap space. We might take on a bad contract here or there, maybe an expiring from a team that wants to do that, but it's usually not rewarding to act as under the salary cap team, especially if you're giving shots to all of these players. So one of them I expect to get a shot is Fabian White. If Fabian White goes to the G League and he's killing it there, they would probably want to give him one of those 1-year not 1 year, 4 year minimum deals that are not guaranteed, and you need the MLE for that unless you do have the cap space for it. But the worst case scenario is one where you use up all of your cap space, you only have access to the room MLE, which is I think 5 million, but you can only give it for 2 years. So it will be interesting because depending on how much John Wall gives back, there's some wiggle room to play either side of the salary cap next year.
Whoops. The last topic we're going to talk about is that the Rockets. I can't remember the exact wording on this. Do you remember who had the Abdel Fattah news?
Kelly Ego.
Okay. In Kelly Ego's piece, he mentioned that the Rockets are, virtually a lock to sign the Vipers head coach, Coach Abdel Fattah, to be part of Steven Silas's coaching staff next season. I thought he did a really good job with a lot of the players that went down there in terms of their development. I will actually even go as far as to say that when Kevin Porter Jr. was down in Rio Grande Valley, that was some of the best pick and roll playing that he had done in his entire Rockets tenure. So I think, how he's going to handle the guards on this team in terms of his coaching, I think I'm very high on that aspect of his coaching. Hopefully, he'll be able to impact the other players on the roster, but just from a guard standpoint specifically, I was very high on how he handled KPJ when he was down there, Daishen Nix when he was down there, and a few other guys as well. But I'm going to name off those specifically. Yeah, KJ when he was down there too.
Josh Christopher.
Yes, definitely Christopher. That was another one. That's the one I was leaving out. But the Rockets have had a very strong record of hiring guys to be the Vipers head coach that are great coaches down there. They go to the NBA. They do very well in the NBA. And we've even had, two of those go on to be head coaches, one being Nick Nurse and the other one being, I'm sorry, do you remember the other one, Paulo? I'm blanking right now.
It's the guy.
Chris Finch, right?
Yeah,
and Chris Finch. There we go. So, very good basketball minds. Coach Abdel Fattah, I believe, is right in that same lineage. So I'm excited to get him in, get him working with the guys, and we'll see what comes about of the last remaining coaching vacancies on this coaching staff.
Yeah, I think you summed it up pretty well there. I think he would be one of the guys that I would heavily consider to replace Steven Silas if he's got to go. I think it's unlikely that he would, just because I find it hard to believe that they would give a rookie head coach a chance after the first rookie head coach. And if they are moving on from Silas, that means that they don't really see it as a really positive thing. I think he's a really good development coach, as you said. Josh Christopher looked really good after coming back from his G League stint. KPJ, the same thing. But the way I see this is maybe this is okay, let's bring this guy up. Let's have him with the team, see how the guys mesh with him. Let's see if this guy has head coach potential, because I think this would be a little bit of an audition for him on should you be in consideration next year when Steven Silas's contract expires. And then besides that, I think he would be the first Middle Eastern coach, if I'm not mistaken, in the NBA. If you were a head coach, I'm pretty sure that would be the case. As an assistant, I'm not sure. But anyways, I think I don't think it's a race hire or anything like that. I think he's totally earned it. But I do think it's worth pointing out that he made it this far and he absolutely deserves everything that he gets. And in my opinion, he would even deserve a chance to actually be head coach for what he did with the Vipers. They won this year. So they won this year and they developed Daishen Nix at the same time. It's got to be hard to continue to run a team to win with your best players being constantly out of practice, out of the games, because at any time if a player's doing well, they're going to get called up. It happened with Knicks. Happened with
just think about last year. The Rockets, I think it was the NBA record for the most players that were ever used in a single season. So that roster turnover that happened in the Vipers last year was just, unreal. The Rockets were calling people up. They called up, and I'll never forget this. I don't know why it stuck with me to this level, but they called up Ray Spalding. He played like in 2 games, and then like the first 10 minutes of the second game just tears his Achilles. Super tragic scene. Felt horrible for the guy. But that was just the level of injury devastation that the Rockets had, where it's like, we bring this guy up, he shows flashes for 1 game, oh, Ray Spalding's gonna, be good for us for a good part of the season, and then just like that, it's taken away from him and taken away from the rosters in terms of developing them as well. So, yeah, just want to echo exactly what you said there in terms of how difficult it's been for Coach Abdel Fattah down there, having to deal with incredible roster turnover.
Yep.
All right. Do you have anything else? I think we're going to close the pod down real quick. We're about 5 minutes away from this Adrian Wojnarowski special. If anything happens, if anything happens on that, that's very interesting. What we might do is record a YouTube only segment. We'll drop that. I'll try to drop that sooner. So if anything happens on the Adrian Wojnarowski special, we're going to drop that as a YouTube exclusive. So go ahead and check that out on the YouTube. The link for that will be in the description of the pod on Apple and Spotify as well. But that's going to do it for us for this segment of the show. As always, you can follow me at Don Knock. You can follow the pod at Clutch City CR. Paolo, go ahead and tell the people where they can find your stuff.
My last sentence in this podcast is Paolo Banchero and Jalen Green are going to be one of the most fun duos ever to watch play basketball. That pick and roll is going to be unstoppable. We're going to get 2 stars in the making. A lot to be happy about. Can't wait for the draft. That being said, you can follow me at Paulo Alves NBA. That's PAULOALVES NBA. Everything I do from podcasts like this one to the live shows on Twitter Spaces will find itself linked on there. On draft night, if you're alone, if you're at home alone and lonely and you want someone to watch the draft party with, we're going to be doing live spaces as the draft goes on with a lot of the guys that you're familiar with on Rockets Twitter: Rush Williams, Nathan Falk, Itamar, James Piercy, Brad. A lot of guys are going to be there, so don't miss it. It will be really fun. Can't wait for it. And hopefully when we see y'all again, it will be knowing who our picks will be.
So that's going to do it for us. Until next time, everyone be safe and go Rockets.